Hey, what is going on? Los Angeles, welcome back after a long hiatus to the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. Glad to have you here with us. Football is underway as we're recording. We're minutes away from the season kicking off with the Chiefs and Ravens. Crazy, going to be a great game. We'll watch that after we record this. And then obviously Rams, Lions, which is why we were on right now, previewing that game. Sunday night, primetime football in Detroit. Going to get all into that, plus a bunch of news we missed. I was in Mexico for a week. Then we had Labor Day holiday. And so it's just been a little hiatus, I guess, before the season starts. So we apologize. I know it was busy with, 53-man roster, the Ernest Jones trade, which we'll talk briefly about, just give our thoughts. We have shuffling on the offense. A lot of stuff happened that unfortunately we were just gone and out of town. But we're back now. We're here all season long. 2, 3, 4 days a week. We will be here for you guys and cannot wait as the season kick off. So thanks for bearing with us and thanks for being back. But first and foremost, welcome back, Skinny T. What's up, my man? How we doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. I always got to kick off with some weather talk. It is over 100 degrees here in Los Angeles.
Oh my gosh, it is so hot.
It's the worst when the sun goes down and you still go outside and it's still too hot out there. It's still in the high 80s. That's when it's too hot.
Because that's the best thing about LA is when the sun goes down, it gets chilly at night. Even if it's a 95-degree day, it'll be low 60s at night, and you get a little chilly, a little brisk. And this week it's still I think it was 92 last night or something. It's crazy.
Yeah. Hopefully I won't lose power. We lost power a little bit ago with some rolling brownouts. Everybody's got their ACs pumping for sure. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, please. Yeah. And hopefully we can get through this recording at least, but
yeah.
Well, good. Well, glad. I hope you had some good time off. I had a nice relaxing time. I wouldn't even call it really relaxing, but a nice trip down to Tulum area of Mexico. So that was good. And, but ready football. Finally, we can talk about live football and not just speculation and rumors and stuff behind the scenes. But first, we got to talk about stuff that happened last week quickly. Ernest Jones, shockingly, traded for a bag of peanuts to the Tennessee Titans. He's been our guy, your for sure favorite defensive player, mine arguably as well. Clearly the best defensive player when healthy. It happened fast and furiously. It came out on Tuesday or Wednesday that the Rams allowed him to seek a trade. He responds less than 24 hours. I didn't ask for a trade. 24 hours after that, he's traded. First, just what's your thoughts on the everything that went down? It happened so fast and it was so shocking.
Yeah, I mean, part of me is completely caught off guard and surprised just because I love the player, I love the guy. A true veteran presence who is still on his rookie contract. So I don't even know if you can call him a veteran at this point, but I was definitely bummed to see it. But at the end of the day, this is the Rams organization, and this is how they've always operated.
Yep.
So in that way, it doesn't come as much of a surprise to me. But what does come as a surprise to me is Troy Reeder, Christian Roseboom. Are these our starters? A couple years ago, Ernest Jones beat out Troy Reeder for the starting position when he was a rookie. Now we're going back to him. And they've praised his communication abilities. Roseboom is a very athletic fella. But with this young, small defensive line, that second level, that's really important in run defense. And I know they've added some safeties and they're going to load the boxes up a bit more. But we'll talk about the game a bit. But this is a run heavy and a really well running a Detroit Lions team. They're going to play right off the bat. And Omar Speights was well thought of, highly graded by PFF coming out of the preseason. He's got to live up to top billing and going up against not second stringers, not third stringers.
Yeah, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs.
This is a live game.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. I mean, not saying that's all on the linebacking core, but tough test. It was, when we did our linebacking rankings a month or so ago, we both had Ernest Jones in the top 10. He was the heartbeat of this defense after, Jalen Ramsey, after Aaron Donald. He was the last kind of guy standing, and he's the true, I think, heartbeat, or was the heartbeat, I should say. And so it was just really, really surprising. And seeing the compensation they got the Rams received a 2026 fifth-round pick. They gave up Ernest Jones and a 2026 conditional sixth-round pick. So literally getting basically nothing in return. He's on a rookie contract. You mentioned it. So two things. Either the negotiation was so far off, and the Rams, as we know, do not really re-sign or sign a lot of players to second contracts, let alone defensive players. I think I was looking, the last like defensive player to get a second contract was like Corey Littleton or something. It's been a while.
Wow.
And he was, yeah, I think that's not maybe the exact, but it's been a while. It's not very common for sure on the defensive side. Obviously you've got like Cooper Kupp. We saw it happen with Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. It happens more on offense, but for sure not on defense, for sure not at the linebacker position. So either they were just way off and Jones knew he should be paid like one of the top guys, like a Warner up in San Francisco, like looking for that type of deal, and the Rams were just not budging. Or there's some injury there that has just been undisclosed. Obviously, he's been kind of nursing something, and maybe it's a Todd Gurley situation where they felt that, man, we're not even going to be able to give him a second contract because of this injury. He may not even clear a physical. And again, we have no idea. I'm just speculating. But when you get what they got back for him, and I know the Rams a lot, and we're sitting here like confused. Obviously, we trust this Rams team, and I think they've proven that they know what they're doing. So I'm not here trying to sound overly critical, but even when they've gotten bad returns, it's still a lot more than what they got in this trade. You look at the Jalen Ramsey trade.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey was coming off a down year, and they still got a third-round pick. And Hunter Long, probably hasn't proven to be anything, but they got a player and a third-round pick. And Jalen Ramsey was making $20 million a year. He was already had a fat contract. This is Ernest Jones on a rookie contract with a year left. So whoever he got traded to had the ability to do their own dealing, coming off his best season ever as a pro, and you get that return. So there's something behind the scenes more than just we're moving on from Ernest Jones, I think. I don't know if there's something that you've thought of conspiracy thinking wise.
Yeah, no, it's hard to know, and time will tell. Maybe they're looking at Spates and going, "Wow, this guy is," they know more about scouting football than I do.
Yeah.
I thought he looked great. I was commenting on him at training camp and how great he was looking there, and so the last time, I kind of mentioned it already. The last time they rolled into a season with Troy Reeder leading the room, it wasn't off to a good start. And like you said, we have full faith in this team, but the last time they really diminished their linebacking core, I didn't like it. I didn't like it so much.
Yeah.
So, they may be misplaying this, but. I don't want to get the ire out there. The most shocking thing was the backlash on both sides. The people that were, Ernest Jones fans and the people that are Rams defenders. Who knew Andrew Whitworth was such a Rams defender, but he got in the muck.
Yeah, he was in it with some people, quite a few, and calling guys out. And
our friend and colleague Jake Ellenbogen got some death threats because he was critical of the Rams.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, we're not trying to be. We're talking through it. We're talking through it. The other thought I had was, okay, we've talked about Ernest Jones, how great he is as a run defender, but he does lack in pass coverage. So I was like, okay, maybe they're going towards a mold of that ilk, and they figured, let's move forward now while we're young in this. But Troy Reeder's pretty terrible in pass coverage, and he's their slated starter. So it certainly wasn't that reason, unless they truly think Omar Spates will eventually be the starting linebacker. And just for now, it's Reeder and Rosebroom, or Jake Hummel obviously had a nice preseason as well, potentially him being kind of a crossover safety linebacker. So, I mean, yeah, unless it's something in the schematically that Chris Shula is kind of changing up, but we may never know. To this day, we don't truly know the whole Todd Gurley thing. And he's even come out and said things about it on podcasts, but it never still fully has unfolded the full reasoning for, we know essentially for him, it was his knee and just his health. So unless that's the reason, it's definitely a head scratcher. But I guess we had to trust his organization. They typically know what they're doing. But I will say, going into camp, we had a lot of question marks about this defense. they seemingly answered a lot of those questions throughout camp and preseason. And now, with no Ernest Jones, with guys on the IR today, just today, for those that haven't heard, Darius Williams gets put on the IR after nursing a hamstring all camp. Now those questions are back risen, and they go up against, as you mentioned, a really good opponent in Detroit.
Yeah, you're looking at you come into this year and there's definitely question marks about the secondary, but I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling fewer question marks there. Tre'Davious White was an All-Pro player. Darius Williams was fantastic in a lot of ways last year and in 2021 when he was last with the Rams. Darius Williams on the IR, Trey Tomlinson on the IR, Darian Kendrick on the IR. Now we're looking at a Kobe Durant starting once again on the outside. And then behind them, it's Josh Wallace and Charles Woods, two undrafted free agents. Now, I think Josh Wallace was a fantastic guy to add as an undrafted free agent, no draft capital used there. And he had a fantastic season for Michigan last year, 15 games, just allowed 21 receptions on 42 targets and just 61 yards of yards after the catch on those 21 catches. So that's just incredible. He only allowed 2 explosive plays, but we're not talking about going up against, Troy. We're not talking about going up against, Eastern Michigan. We're talking about the Detroit Lions. One of the best offenses with some of the best wide receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown just got a new contract. Jameson Williams is getting tons of press this offseason for the leaps he's made, not just being just like a speed outside guy, but getting some other stuff done as well. And so, the secondary now is thin, and I foresee that that Ahkello Witherspoon is still out there. That's a guy they can go after if they think he's healthy this time around. So. I'm expecting that they add somebody in the wake of all of these injuries. Who knows how long this IR is going to last? Could be 4 weeks, could be more.
Yeah. I mean, we just 2 weeks ago, they had 18 defensive backs. And now we're talking about having to add someone off the streets because of, what's transpired. And, Darius Williams been injured since early camp. So it is interesting to announce IR now, but it is what it is. Regardless if they did it then or now, he would have missed 4 games. So, that's the case with that. So anything to add on that front before we just kind of get into this preview?
Well, it's always weird with this team because I feel like the injury report, he was limited. He was listed as a limited participant just yesterday, just on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he goes on IR. So I think that does signal that they want to free up a space for somebody that they can bring in there. You got Cam Lampkin and Sean Jolly on the practice squad. They might go that way. I don't know. We'll see, but it'll tell us a lot what they decide to do there.
Yeah. I would suspect this could get announced soon, but I would suspect with him on IR, I would think they'd move Sean Jolly up. He spent some time on the active roster last year. So knows the secondary, knows Aubrey Pleasant, knows the system. And that they add someone outside of it, Ahkello Witherspoon might be like adding someone to the practice squad, essentially, just to take that spot. So, but we will see. We will keep you posted. All that news can always be found on LAFBnetwork.com. So let's look toward this fantastic matchup brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. Gets you a welcome bonus. Right now, it is at +4. The Rams are +4, so the underdog in this game. It was, I believe, 3.5 before the Darius Williams moves a half a point to +4. All that can be done at betonline.ag. Every other sport they got there, but tell them the guys over at the Rams LAFB sent you. So when you look at this Lions team, really good team. Obviously, we know about last year. What a great matchup it was, 24-23 in the playoffs. They go on and obviously lose the Niners there later on down the line. But this has become, we've talked about it in the offseason. We kind of did schedule breakdown, Skinny. This has become a fun little rivalry. Maybe not as heavy between the actual players, although I think it kind of is, but for sure within the fan bases, this has become a rivalry, and it's a great way to kick the season off. Because we've been talking about the defense now, let's stick with that, and let's look at this Lions offense. And when you think about the likes of Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, as you mentioned, Jameson Williams getting a lot of praise now, the running duo of Montgomery and Gibbs. They also just added Tim Patrick, who, coming off back-to-back sees ACL injuries, but has a lot of talent, who the Broncos just released and could potentially be a big-time jump ball guy if he's acclimated to this offense quickly. So that's a guy to look out for. But the biggest thing, and this is going to be, I think, the biggest matchup, even with the loss of Jones, even with the loss and injuries on the secondary, is the trenches. And you look at this offensive line who lost Jonah Williams, which we'll get to. Not Jonah Williams.
Jonah Jackson.
Jonah Jackson, thank you. Jonah Williams is on the Bengals. Jonah Jackson. But they added, I believe, Zietler from Baltimore. And so almost upgraded at the guard position. And it's arguably the best, you could argue the best offensive line in football. And with this is the first time, and I'm going to toss to you right now, we will actually see this Rams defensive front, because preseason nobody plays. So the first time we will finally see Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, alongside with Byron Young, Kobe Turner, and the likes of others. So how do you feel about this young defensive line going up against this staunch offensive line?
I've still got question marks. Still got question marks about these guys. A lot of rookies, second-year guys, making up most of it. A combined, 2 years of playing experience between 4 starters on the defensive line. But that might work in their advantage. The Detroit Lions don't know exactly what they're going up against. They don't know exactly what kind of moves these guys have. We saw it last year with Byron Young. He came out of the gate hot. Now, this guy doesn't have a ton of moves in his arsenal. I don't think he's the most well-seasoned player out there. But he got off to a hot start. And, that's what I want to see from Verse and Fisk, is just catching people off guard. And, maybe they're going to underestimate them, and they're going to think that, who are these rookies coming in here thinking they can push us around? And then they do, and
yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think this is the key to the game right here, because we watched several years of Jared Goff, and if there's anything that makes him an average to below average to maybe a bad quarterback, is when guys are in his face and trying to get him out of the pocket and collapsing that pocket. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on the defensive line?
Yeah, this is, even if any of our listeners are not USC fans, I feel like a lot of Rams fans are USC fans, but even if they're not, everyone certainly knows what happened on Sunday when the USC Trojans took down the LSU Tigers. And LSU has arguably the best offensive line in college football. They've got 2 starting tackles that are going to be first-round picks if all things go well. Two other offensive linemen that will be draft picks as well. And the Trojans' defensive line was completely rebuilt. Obviously, they brought in Coach Henderson from the Rams to help build that defensive line, and new scheme with Danton Lynn. A lot of unknown going into that game. And the Trojans bullied that staunch LSU offensive line and looked like the aggressor. And so that's what this Rams defensive line is going to have to do. They're outmanned, outmatched on paper versus this Lions offensive line. No doubt. Anyone that says they're not is just being a homer. I mean, it's just that Lions offensive line on paper is a better unit than what the Rams have right now. Not saying the Rams can't be great with Verse and Fisk and these others, but no one's seen it. So anyone that tells you otherwise is just being a homer. But they can surprise people, like to your point, what you're saying. If they come out of the gates hot and surprised, they have a real shot. And that's their biggest advantage, is that just like we and all the fans have no tape, neither do the opponents have any tape. And so whatever schematically Shula and Gift Smith kind of draw up, and then how different kind of pass rush moves and what Verse and company intend to do is their greatest weapon. So it's almost better they're going up against Detroit this early and going up against this great offensive line early, so they can really have that element of surprise. My one concern, I would say, is that, and we've talked a lot about it, the Rams' biggest secret weapon in pass rush was Ernest Jones. I mean, what they were able to do with stunts and middle linebacker blitzes with him, I mean, he was like 100% pass rusher when utilized. And obviously he's not on the team anymore. So they don't necessarily have that. Now, we saw 3 years ago Troy Reeder have a 3-sack game. We saw him have some success in some of those stunts and twists. So maybe they're able to utilize him in that way to what they were a few years ago if he still has that ability. We didn't see him do that with the Chargers last year, but obviously that was a little different schematically. I mean, I know Brandon Staley brought over his same defense, but they didn't utilize him in that way because they had Kenneth Murray and different starting linebackers. He was more of a spot guy. So that would be the one thing I'm looking for, is what the Rams defense does at the linebacker position in terms of pass rush. Because if Young and Verse are not able to get home against the great, Penei Sewell and who else they have on the offensive line, they're going to have to bring some interesting exotic looks to try to get after Goff, because exactly what you said, we've seen him look like a below average quarterback when pressured, but the exact opposite is true too. When he's not pressured, he's actually pretty damn elite. I mean, he's probably a top 10 quarterback when he has a clean pocket, because he's got the arm talent, the accuracy, the scheme that Ben Johnson runs, and they have all the weapons. So you got to get in his face. And if they get in his face, then this is a ball game. If not, it's maybe a long game for the Rams.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to come down to who's biting more kneecaps at a faster rate, I guess. Is and like we saw in the preseason games, Chris Shula has this defense playing at a really fast pace, at a really ferocious clip. So that's just got to manifest itself, and everything that we've heard about Verse specifically is that's the way he plays. That's the way he plays every down in and down out. He's that guy. So. Do I feel great? Do I think that they should be 4-point underdogs? Yeah. This Detroit team can beat you in multiple ways. And, if it comes down to the offensive line versus the defensive line, the running game, pound for pound, they can, the Lions can push them around for sure.
Yeah. The matchup I'm really looking forward to, which I don't know if we'll see it mano-a-mano on every play, but we should see a good amount, because Amon-Ra St. Brown plays a lot in the slot, and our guy Quentin Lake is kind of that nickel spot slot guy. And these guys have history, right? UCLA, Quentin Lake, USC Trojans, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they played against each other. So that's a matchup I'm really excited to see. Now, as great as Lake is, and as much as he's improved, and he's a captain, which is amazing after being a 6th-round pick, I mean, Amon-Ra, in my opinion, is a top 5 receiver. So I'm not expecting him to get shut down by any means. If Quentin Lake can keep him in front of him and just kind of slow him down, I think that's great. I think this is one of those scenarios where you just let Amon-Ra eat and you choose your poison elsewhere. Like, who else do we lock down? Because I just don't think you can lock Amon-Ra down. He's too good of a route runner. He's too crisp. He's too good at hands. What he does in the slot, similar to Cooper Kupp, he has the whole field at his arsenal, at his disposal. So, but what do you think, Skinny? That's kind of a fun matchup to look at when you look at UCLA, USC, Quentin Lake, Amon-Ra, going back to the college days there, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound negative, but it's reality that Quentin Lake is going to be a first-time starter.
Yeah.
Last year, his snap share rose, exponentially from his first season, so that's a good sign. And this is going to be his first and probably hardest test all year. So. Yeah, but I love that. I love the Victory Bell game. I love the UCLA, USC, just all the facets of that. So hopefully they're trash talking.
Right? Yeah, you got to think so. So, that'll be an interesting one. Is there any other, before we jump over to offense, any other defensive matchups, whether it's, Tre'Davious White in his first start with the Rams, I think is going to be interesting, whether he's on Jamison Williams or he just stays on one side of the field. Obviously the back end with Cam Curl, his first start, John Johnson back. Any others you're looking for before we jump to offense?
Yeah. I'm really curious just to see what Chris Shula is all about. They've invested a lot in the safety position, not a lot of money, but they've got a lot of good players back there. Kinchins and Curl, both the two Cams. Just see how they're going to use those guys specifically. Are they the pass rushers? Are they up on the line of scrimmage? Are they stacking the boxes, like I was saying, to try to stop the run? And then outside of Lake, who's covering Amon-Ra? Is Troy Reeder on that duty?
Don't do that to me.
Is Michael Hoyt,
oh God,
on that duty? Hopefully they got that part figured out.
Yeah.
that's actually something I'm really curious about is, are they going to use the outside linebackers as much as they have in the past?
Mm. Yeah, if we see Jared Verse in coverage, that's a problem. We don't.
And I mean, at training camp, he was dropping back into coverage. I mean, in college, he was, 4-point stance, 3-point stance kind of guy.
Yeah.
And now he's standing up on the edge. And man, I mean, this is a tough team. This is a really tough offense. Brian Johnson's got something to prove this year too. He wants a Super Bowl bad.
Yeah, he came back for a reason, right? Instead of being a head coach.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, tough test for this defense right out the gate with a lot of questions. I'm excited because it's an opportunity to surprise a lot of people, and I think we know they're going to play competitive. We know they're going to play with their hair on fire. So I don't think that's a question. It's just how schematically are they going to match up against this really juggernaut offense, because we saw in that second half of the playoff game really buckle down. I mean, the defense looked great, but no Aaron Donald. No, I mean, it's a very different looking defense, let alone different coach leading the defense. So, we've probably been, of all the podcasts out there, maybe the most critical of the defensive moves this year. Not negative. I hope we haven't come off negative, but just critical thinking wise of how it's going to make sense. And so now we get to see it in action, and I'm excited to really see it all come together. But to me, even if they give up high points in this game, it's not like end of the world, because to me, it's a pass. This is a really hard game to have to kick things off with. And so if it takes a while to get them up to speed, I'm not worried about that. All right, but let's jump over to the offense quickly. A lot of questions there as well. Unfortunately, we kind of alluded to it, but quickly, well, I'll let you just do it. Rehash the offensive line issues, questions. Noah Larrick Jackson, Rob Havenstein, will he play? Jonah Jackson, is he moving to center? I'll let you sum up what's going on in the offensive line.
Well, Larrick Jackson is suspended, so he's going to miss time.
Yeah,
the first 2 games. He was also injured too, as I recall.
Yep.
Rob Havenstein listed as a limited participant on the,
which means he'll be on IR tomorrow,
whatever that means. And then in the most bizarre twist, it's Jonah Jackson flipping to center, a position that he has not played in his pro career. I don't know if he played while he was in college. I think he's played 24 snaps in one game a couple of years ago. And it's not an easy position. Anyway, the switch would be moving Steve Avila back to left guard, where they like him a lot. But center is not an easy position. And he would be moving into it this week, I guess, last week, just playing it, So, I mean, Stafford does a ton. It's not like, when I always forget his name for some reason. Jason Kelsey was.
Oh yeah.
He was kind of running the show in terms of calling out, pressure, who's the mic, all that stuff. This would be a brand new thing, where at least with Steve Avila, he had played center in college at TCU. So very strange. Just I'm puzzled by it. It makes me feel a little bit like 2022, when they were heading into that with all the shuffling at along the offensive line that year. Yeah, I mean, that's the shape of the offensive line right now.
Yeah. And again, I know fans, I feel like we get kind of called out sometimes for being negative. I don't think we're negative, but I don't want it to come off that way. But it does make you question the Jackson signing altogether. If they felt like there could be a chance that they would want to keep Avila at guard, then why go sign another guard that has very limited center experience when you could have just gone and got a center, or decided, hey, we're going to target one early in the draft? Now, obviously, you don't know how the draft's going to fall. And we talked all free agency is the draft is like bonus. You don't plan on starting that right now in the draft, because there's a lot of different things can happen. Your future, obviously, you built through the draft. But it makes you really question when Avila looked so strong at guard. We know Kevin Dotson was great at guard, and they were going to re-sign him. Why go target another guard within the thought of, now they obviously probably weren't planning on him playing center. So whether it was the fact that Avila just wasn't looking great in camp at center, whether it was, hey, we think Steve Avila has a lot better injury sustainability, whereas Jackson has proven there's some frailty there, and we really like what we see from Bo Limmer. So why not keep Avila staying in the position? Because if Avila was at center, Jackson gets hurt at guard, then what? They move Avila then over to guard and then slot in Bo Limmer to center, or they make Bo Limmer play guard. So maybe they're just thinking, in the case of Jackson's frailty, which again makes you question why they signed him, but in the case of that, we'd rather not have to shuffle. We just have, okay, we got 3 centers or 2 centers that can all play. I don't love it. It's a very interesting. Now Stafford's come out and said he's not concerned about it. Obviously, we've gone to keep mentioning, like, we trust McVay. He knows what he's doing, but it's peculiar. We'll just go with that. Peculiar a week before the season to announce you're moving your prized guard to center.
Yeah, prized is right. You know, that was probably where we were most critical, was saying, why would you spend this much money on your offensive line? Now, obviously, keep Stafford upright, the running game, all of that. But that was, you know, I remember us being a bit critical, going, "Oh, you're paying Kevin Dotson a lot. Oh, wow, you're now paying Jonah Jackson a lot, and we have the 4th most expensive offensive line in all of football." You know, with a rookie contract guy on there, Larry Jackson. You know, 3 guys are making a whole bunch of money on there. So, you know, when you invest that much, like let's say you're buying a car. You know, and all of a sudden, you know, you got to replace this and you got to replace that, and you got to get into the shop every few weeks. You know, it's, you know, I just bought this car. I spent a bunch of money on this car. You know, it doesn't feel good. That's not the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's one thing to have a cheap investment and change it. So like Michael Hoyt, right? Being a 3 tech, more down in the dirt guy, and then like, hey, we're going to move you outside backer, shed some weight. Like, he was a cheaper project anyway, but when you go spend for a particular reason and then decide to change right before the season, it's peculiar. We'll just stick with peculiar. But all that to be said, it's looking like that will be the case on Sunday night. So no Jackson, Joe Noteboom looking like he will play left tackle to start, with Avila, Jonah Jackson at center, and then obviously Kevin Dotson. And then if Rob Havenstein doesn't go, who do you like at right tackle?
McClendon was kind of the de facto number 2, if you can put him in that position. So, you know, a step down for sure. I don't think he's as good as Havenstein. Obviously, doesn't have the same experience, and I think it'll probably be. I don't recall if he is how much playing time he's had. I'll take a look if you've got any other thoughts. But
yeah, I mean that's most likely what it'll be, and it's, you know, for as good as the Lions' offensive line is, their defensive line is also no slouch. When you look at Aiden Hutchinson, who certainly has lived up to being the 2nd overall pick. When you look at, they signed Marcus Davenport, who has had a down career since being drafted in the 1st round, but obviously a lot of talent there. DJ Reader, who they got from Cincinnati, is a great nose tackle. Alan McNeil is a lot of size right there. And then when you look at these linebackers, great linebackers. I know they don't rush them a lot, but when you talk about the run game and how important this run game is going to be with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, a lot of that hinges on getting to that 2nd level to open those gaps up to against backers. And when you look at the likes of Alex Anzalone and Jack Campbell, 2 of the top backers, I think most underrated backers in football, that now this offensive line is going to go against. And so that's their thing. The other wrinkle with Jonah Jackson at center is, I don't think he'll have an issue in pass protection, because that's, you know, you're fortifying a wall. But when you're calling out the mic and who's this and that, and all of a sudden you're signaling to who has what on certain blocks and certain zones and certain gaps, obviously they know he's up to it or they wouldn't make the switch. But that is the big change, because at guard, you don't do that. Obviously you have to know your role, but the center is typically the one who's calling out, like, okay, when we're going to the 2nd level, this is what we're going to do. Now, obviously Matthew Stafford will help out with that. And obviously they feel like Jonah Jackson is well equipped to do it, or they wouldn't do it, but we haven't seen it yet. So that's just why we're bringing up these curiosities.
Peculiarities. That's a hard one to say. Yeah, Warren McClendon played 26 snaps in week 18 and 6 snaps in week 5. I guess somebody went down for a couple of snaps, but yeah, not a ton of game experience. He didn't allow any pressures in that game against San Francisco in week 18. So there you go. That's something to hang your hat on right there.
There you go.
Yeah. I think, you know, this game is going to come down from the offensive side of things, anyway, it's going to have to be a really incredible Stafford game. It's going to have to be Cooper Kupp game. It's going to have to be a big Puka Nacua game. I think, I would love to see the running game getting going. But they've obviously had a big focus on kind of shoring that up as well. And I think it's going to have to be a bit of an old school Rams performance with some explosive plays. They catch them off guard. They're able to put up some points, get some, I don't want to call them cheap plays or cheap points or anything like that, but just kind of catch this team off guard and get them on their heels, because at least then they can kind of operate. They'll have some space to operate the running game and get that going. And maybe it's a Tutu Atwell game where they just really stretch the field somehow with him.
Yeah, there you go. We'd love to see that. And that is, I think, where this Rams team can take advantage. The Lions have a lot of talent on the back end, but really youthful. When you look at Terry and Arnold, they drafted this year, phenomenal draft pick, but a rookie. Brian Branch drafted last year, phenomenal draft pick. I mean, a pair of Alabama Crimson Tide, but a second-year player. Even the likes of Kirby Joseph is only in his third year, I believe. So there is some youth back there that they can potentially expose with some great play calling and different schemes to kind of free some guys up if they're able to use Tutu, whether as the deep threat or just clearing out space for Puka and Cooper to kind of eat over the middle. So that is what I expect to see. They're going to try to establish the run. We know they've been talking about it all along with Kyron and Blake Corum, but depending how this offensive line can get to that second level will really dictate whether they can stick to that or they're going to have to just throw it 45 times, which we talk about all the time is not a recipe for winning. But in this week, it may have to be just because of all the changes and shifts and injuries. They're going to just have to rely on their star quarterback, which sometimes you do. And Matthew Stafford is that. We know he wants nothing more than to beat the Lions in Detroit. So he's got that added flavor there. And after losing and ending their season last year in Detroit, nothing would be sweeter than upsetting the Lions on their home turf with all these question marks, with all these new pieces. So we'll end with that. Do you think they do it? What's your score prediction?
I think so. I think that the revenge tour is on. One key player that won't be around is Kelly Stafford. She's not going to be in attendance to the game. Yeah. So
staying back in LA.
I think this is a game that Stafford takes over. He just kind of goes into Terminator mode and just starts slinging the rock, telling people what to do and just really owning it and getting one back for the good guys. We'll call them. And my score prediction is going to be 32-30.
Woo! High scoring. I love that.
Did you see what the over under?
I of course did not look at that, and I already closed my tab.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, you can take a look. I'm guessing that would hit the over. That'd be 62 points in an NFL game. I feel like that would be the over for sure. Look, I want to pick the Rams so bad. I think this is a really good Rams team. I truly believe they'll figure things out, and I think they will be a playoff team. I think we said during the offseason, we both kind of feel this is like a 10, maybe 11 win team. Like the floor is probably 9. The ceiling's probably 11, like real close in that range. So I think this is a good team, but I don't know if they get it done in Detroit with the changes that happened so recently. Like we knew all offseason things that were changing, but you have these big shifts, trading Ernest Jones, putting Darius Williams on IR, losing your left tackle, potentially your right tackle, and moving your prize guard to center. That's a lot of change in 1 week to go up against a perennial Super Bowl contender in their building. So I want to take the Rams. I think it's going to be a great game still. Rams are going to play their hearts out as they always do, always well coached. But I do think the Lions take this one. I'll go 27-7. No, 27-20. So just keep it within one score. But yeah, they don't cover. So 27-20.
All right. Yeah. So the over under is 51 points. So my estimation.
Smash the over.
And
I think it's the under.
Just taking, I think it's going to be a rock fight. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be back and forth. I think they're in it the whole time.
Love that. Yeah. It's going to be a great game. What a great, the schedulers nailed this, having the first Sunday night game, this game in Detroit. It's going to be so much fun. So can't wait. Thank you guys all for hanging out with us. we will be probably live right after the game. I think we're going to go live right after the game. We're going to start doing lives after every game, if not right after the game, the very next day. But usually right after the game, we're going to go live right here on the Rams LAFB YouTube channel and on LAFBnetwork.com. So please come hang out, bring your thoughts, your questions, your anger, your happiness. If we win, we'll all be cheersing and drinking. If we lose, we'll all be drinking. So we'll all be doing the same thing the whole time together. So please come hang out with us. And thank God football is back. As we were finishing up, the Ravens went right down the field and scored a touchdown on the Chiefs. So they have an early 7-0 lead. So football is officially back, baby. Let's get it. Thank you all for hanging out. For Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyer. This is the Rams LAFB show on the LAFB network. Talk to you all after the game.